style is very much a language. It's a societal, communal language. It's a way of communicating things about yourself to people that perceive you before you have the chance to open your mouth. You put that together.
I'm him.
Nobody, exactly. I'm him. Nobody else in here has this on, and even if they did, they wouldn't look as good.
So how did you become the director for Black Menswear?
Yes. So interestingly enough, I just kept showing up. I am in therapy.
Okay.
I am in therapy even though I felt like I didn't need it. And I think that I died for my son in a heartbeat, but my son would be better off if I could stay around to help him, right? Keep yourself healthy. You can be a benefit to the people that you care about. You got to save yourself first.
Welcome back to Conversation with Mr. French. I'm your host, Derek French. My today's guest is a stylist, director, content creator, community organist, and the director of styles for Black Menswear. We're going to talk about today fashion, leadership, his faith, family, mental health, and how important it is to build a community. My guest today is Mr. Will Dingle. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did I butcher your name? Or
Wasn't too
good?
Wasn't too bad.
Wasn't too bad. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate it. Thank you for stopping by.
No problem, bro. Anytime.
So, for the people who's meeting you for the first time, can you tell us about yourself?
Yeah. So Mr. Will Dingle, right?
Okay.
So Mr. Will Dingle, I'm based out of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
I am the director of style for Black Menswear, as you mentioned. I also, still in this rat race, work a 9 to 5. I devote most of my time, as much as I can, to first and foremost fatherhood, husbandry, trying to make a positive impact in my community, and then in terms of kind of my pie in the sky, like things I do that I love. I always talk about my son about that, having something that you do that you love that you would do for free.
Okay.
Right. The study of and discussion about classic menswear and styling is something I just really genuinely love, right? I could sit and wax poetic about it for hours. So I would do that for free, even though no one was paying me. So,
So is that a thing for our culture, the styling? Like, see, I'm from the Midwest, and growing up, I seen a lot of older men in suits and hats and things of that nature. But then I get to the West Coast, and it's just totally opposite. You don't see that.
Yeah. So there's certainly a regional component to it, right? When I say classic menswear, right, I don't want to misconstrue it as that just being suits, right? Because classic menswear is how men dressed that was appropriate for the time that they lived in, appropriate for the occasion they were attending, appropriate for the climate they lived in, right? First and foremost, right, what you wear is supposed to be comfortable.
Yes.
Right? No matter where you are, what you're doing, you're supposed to be comfortable doing that. There are places in the U.S. or elsewhere around the country, around the world, where dressing in a suit every single day at some point in time was very, very comfortable and socially acceptable, right? That may not be the case nowadays, right? So the understanding or approach to menswear has to evolve with the times, right? In our community, we historically have always, I'm from the South. I'll speak from my personal experience. We've historically always, we've always put it on to go to church.
Yes.
We were going to put it on to go to church.
This is true.
Easter Sunday is like a fashion show. What I mean? And some of that was absolutely impressed upon me in my upbringing, but also learning more about the history of it. Form tends to follow function. Right. So, and I'm an engineer by trade. That's what I do in my 9 to 5. Right.
Okay.
So I'm very much interested in how things work and why they work that way. And menswear and menswear styling is very much like that. Right. If you look at the history of things, you can find out why men wear their pants the way that they wore them, why the waist tended to come up higher back in the day, why you put a cuff in the trousers of a pair, cuff in the hem of a pair of trousers. Why why you have jackets that have actual buttons that you can open up the actual cuff, right? All these things have an actual function when they were originally conceived. Now that function may no longer be the case, right? Because times have changed and it may not necessarily be needed.
Yes.
But it's cool to me to look back and learn those things because it helps inform how I dress now and why I make the choices I make with what I wear.
So you're saying you have to dress for certain occasions, like interviews.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So that, you know, so when I work with clients and I'm talking to them about styling, I always tell them those three things that they need to dress for, right? They have to dress for the occasion, they have to dress for the climate or the temperature or whatever the case may be where they are, and they have to dress for an appropriate level of formality. Right. So given the example you just gave, right? If you go on a job interview, you're not going to show up in a tuxedo, right? Unless it's that kind of job.
Correct.
Right. Where you have to wear a tuxedo on the job, right? So there are levels of formality that it's important to understand so that you know that you're showing up and presenting yourself appropriately wherever you go.
Yeah. So quick side story. So my previous job, I was working in the front office due to an injury. So this guy workers comp light duty, and they were hosting interviews, right? So I had to let people in. The candidates I seen, I can count on one finger, on one hand, how many people I seen in a suit.
Yes, yeah. It's there are several things that I can think of that could be at the root of that. One of the biggest ones that's been most prominent that I think everybody can attest to. Post-pandemic, right? Post-2020, there's been a widespread casualization of society at large, right? I mean, you know, we were stuck in the house for a year and a half, brother.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everybody wanted to dress cozy, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that if you're in the house.
Correct.
Right? I think what I'm seeing now is kind of a wave that's forming in the opposite direction. I think that now, especially in our community,
yes,
we are actively seeking opportunities to get dressed. We're actively seeking reasons to put it on. And I love that. I love that. I'm seeing more clients. I'm seeing more younger clients in the past 6 months than I've seen in the past 2 years. Right? Younger brothers that are coming to me and saying, "Hey, you know, maybe they don't want to wear a suit. Maybe they're not looking to wear a suit. But they're like, hey, I want to figure out how to dress and present myself to stand out from everybody else when I go to the lounge this weekend, when I take my lady out for dinner on Friday night, whatever the case may be, right? Maybe they don't want to put on, like I said, a full suit, but they still want to look like, you put that together.
I'm him.
Nobody, exactly. I'm him. Nobody else in here has this on, and even if they did, they wouldn't look as good.
So I'm in the suit. And when I put on the suit and I walk through like any room, heads turn. Like,
absolutely.
Like they come and tell you, well, you know, what do you do for work?
Where's he going? Who is this brother?
Correct.
Right? It's one of the things that multiple mentors that I've had have impressed upon me is that style is very much a language. It's a societal communal language. It's a way of communicating things about yourself to people that perceive you before you have the chance to open your mouth.
Oh yeah.
Right? And you can make the decision for yourself what you want to say without saying, right? Before you leave the house, right? You get up, you know, you're going, okay, cool. I've got that job interview today. All right. I've got that job interview today. I want my impression to be professional, astute, right? I want to make sure that I'm seen as competent. I'm seen as somebody who gets the job done, somebody who's dependable, who's consistent, all of these things. Wearing a suit, wearing the right suit, can communicate all of that while you're sitting in the lobby waiting for them to call your name, right? You wore a navy blue suit. That is the textbook business suit, right? You wore a navy blue suit. Your suit fits you properly, right? You've chosen a navy blue suit that's appropriate for the time of year. Your interview is in July. Your suit is not made of flannel, right? You've made the right decision. It's like, okay, cool. He chose the right suit. If you go in there in July in a navy blue suit that's made of flannel, it looks like that's the only suit you own.
Yes. So you're saying first impression means everything.
Absolutely.
First impression.
Absolutely. ideally,
Mm-hmm.
ideally, we would love to live in a society where nobody is judged on their appearance.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fantastic dream. We don't live in that society.
Not at
We
all.
can work towards it, but we don't live in it. We have to train ourselves and govern ourselves for the reality that we live in today.
Yes.
And the reality is that people are going to make judgments about you based on appearance, positive or negative,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's going to happen no matter what you do.
And as our culture, we only get one shot,
Absolutely.
especially at like a 6-figure job or something like that nature.
100%.
You only get one shot.
100%.
And if you swing and you miss,
Good. See you at the next step back.
Yeah.
You might not give it back up until the next game.
yeah, they didn't
know?
you didn't set yourself back now.
Absolutely.
Because of you didn't set yourself for success the first time you came around.
Correct. I absolutely I try to impress that on my son. My son's a teenager, right? He'll be 14 in a couple of weeks.
I have a teenager. He's 16.
Yeah. So you guys trying to I swear, man, it's like sometimes it feels like trying to force the square in the round hole, but but it's trying to impress upon the generation behind us
Mm-hmm.
so much of the knowledge that we've gained through our years, knowing that when we were their age, we didn't want to listen either.
Yes. So and that's right there. I try to tell my sons, hey, I'm your cheat code, son. I was your age.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you just because, son, I'm telling you because I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
You have to remember, I was a young black man as well.
Mm-hmm.
I said, hey, the world is already against you.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell them, hey, you better not be wearing, hey, I better not catch you sagging.
Right.
I better not catch you. So I totally agree with you. It's like, hey, I'm trying to force into you, like, this is tough love, son. I know what I'm talking about. But kids nowadays, dang, things changed. No, son.
Man, we said the same thing. We said the same thing.
Yeah.
All the stuff that my grandfather tried to tell me when I was small, like it all came true.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of it proved itself true. All of it. And I didn't want to hear it. And it wasn't until I reached a certain level of maturity that I could look back and look him in the eyes and say, you know what, you were right.
Mm-hmm.
You were right. And I didn't want to listen. And I wish I could have told you this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It would have saved me time. But the stuff that you were trying to force, it got through my head eventually. You weren't wasting your breath.
So, but what for me is I had to tell my mother that. My father wasn't around. My father's incarcerated. So I met him in my senior year in high school, which was 2005.
Okay.
So my mother, she was the things the things that I didn't want to hear, she was telling me. So as I got older and had my own kids, I went back and, Mom, you was right.
Yeah.
You was the 1,000% her and my grandmother.
Absolutely.
And my grandmother's no longer here, but to this day, Mom, you was right. I should have listened.
Absolutely.
And,
I mean, and the same thing. Like my father wasn't as around. My mother moved around a lot, so we weren't close to each other geographically. So he wasn't able to be there like a lot of folks were. But again, my grandfather stepped in everywhere he could. I had uncles that stepped in. Men in my family, in my community, who stepped in to teach me. Try to fill those gaps that my father wasn't able to. Right. Again, like I talked about. Fatherhood, husbandry. Being an upstanding man in your community. Those things are very important. And it reminds me of there was a clip I saw of a podcast that Steve Harvey was on, and he was talking about it was just after the loss of his father.
Okay.
And he was talking about how hard it hit him because he realized, or someone had told him, one of the two, that your father is the only man in your life that actually wants you to be better than him.
I tell my son that every day. I want you to be better than me. I tell all of them.
100%.
My daughter, she's the oldest, and I have 2 boys. And I always tell them, hey, I'm on you because I want you to be better than me. I know what's out there. And I'm just trying to prepare you, son. Hey, listen to your mom, listen to your mom's husband. Don't hang around certain people.
Yeah.
It's because, once again, I was your age.
Right.
But the thing is, my dad wasn't around. I ripped and ran the streets and had to learn it the hard way.
Yeah. And you don't want your kids to have to learn it the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
And I it's such a double-edged sword in that respect, because many of the things in my upbringing, in my kind of journey from boyhood to manhood, many of the things that I learned the hard way were explained to me the easy way first.
Yes.
But the thing I always say is, but Pharaoh's heart was hardened,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna try it anyway. And then I had to come back and eat my humble pie.
Mm-hmm.
And on one hand I want to spare my son that, but on the other hand, certain things that's what's going to have to happen. And I understand. I hate it's that way, but I understand that, because also at the end of the day, right, I look at him like he's my son. There's a lot of me in him.
Yes.
A lot of the lessons that I wasn't going to learn no other way, he's not going to learn any other way.
And my son's a junior, so I'm right there with you. It's like, and he always say, Dad, but you was my age and you did this and that. And I said, you were right. Mm-hmm. But I learned the hard way, son. Mm-hmm. My mom and my grandmother raised me, but my mom, she was the dad figure and my grandma was the mother figure.
Yeah.
So my mother worked 2 jobs. It was 4 of us. But to be honest, I felt like I was missing that father figure. Yeah. Because my mother and them, they couldn't teach me things. So I ripped and ran the streets. So I try to tell my son, I'm there for both. And even my daughter, she's grown. That's a whole different ball game. Yeah. But mainly my boys, because like I keep telling them, you're Black. At the end of the day, we don't have as much opportunity given to us as the other cultures have.
Correct.
Son.
Not as much opportunity given.
No,
correct.
No. So I gotta tell him, I want you to continue. He get good grades at school, but he's just knucklehead. I had to say, stop hanging around certain boys and stop hanging around. They're not your friends. Yeah. Because your friends are not going to tell you to do something that's not right.
Man, I had in elementary school, I had a conversation with my son because he was it wasn't like big trouble, but he was doing like little stupid stuff, like sneaking stuff to school that he didn't have no business taking to school, dumb stuff like that. Yeah. And we talk, and one of the things I've tried to foster from birth was that we like, hey, listen, number one, I don't lie to you ever about anything. Like I've never lied to this child. I was like, boy, I will tell you the truth if the truth make me look bad, because I want you to have that long-standing trust with me that no matter what come out my mouth, you can trust it. It's always true, right? So we talk. He's very comfortable telling me things. And I asked him, I said, well, why are you doing these things? Like, I don't want to just, haul off with discipline. Yeah. I want to understand. Again, that's my engineer mindset, right? And come to find out that he was taking these things to school because there were kids at school that he wanted to like him, that he wanted, to be friends with. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, I said, okay, you want to be friends with them or they're your friends now? He said, well, they're my friends. I said, okay, they're your friends, but you have to do this thing that you shouldn't be doing in order to be friends with them. I said, okay, son, what do you think let's talk about what your definition of friend is.
Preach.
Right? And he gave me, some definition. I said, okay, cool. I was like, I want you to put that aside for a second. I said, I want you to download this and hold on to it. Okay. Mm-hmm. I like giving situational explanations. I said, okay, cool. If you're at school, it's a private school, small class sizes, but whatever the case may be. I said, if you're at school and a group of 6 other little boys decide they're going to jump you and beat you up. So this person that you said is your friend, if they saw you about to get jumped, are they going to jump in and fight with you? I was like, you don't have to answer the question.
But we know that.
But I'll tell you this. If the answer is no, they're not your friend.
Nope.
They're not your friend. So I don't have a lot of people that I actually call friend. Mm-hmm. I was like, but every single one, I named some of them, the people he calls uncle that I'm not related to. Yeah. I was like, every one of the people that I just named, if they heard I was about to be in a fight on the other side of town, they're going to break speeding laws to get across town to find out where I'm at. And I'm going to do the same for them. Mm-hmm. These are the people that are actual friends in your life. These are the people that are going to be friends with you for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. People who are willing to shed blood with you, shed blood over you, right? That's a real friend.
Yeah, correct.
Right? It's not somebody who's going to stand by you even if you're wrong, right? Because a real friend is going to tell you that you're wrong.
You might not want to hear it.
You generally don't.
Yeah, because at that moment, usually don't. You're supposed to be side with me, but he's got your best interest. Like, right. At the end of the day, because You don't
Your
want
friend
to be...
wants the best for you. Again, they may not want you to be better than them. They're not your father, but they want the best for you, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to see you beat up. They don't want to see you hurt. They don't want to see you fail.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Again, may not want you more successful than they are, but they don't want to see you destitute.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And after that conversation, like he really, number one, he shrunk his circle a lot, which I think a great many of us in our community over time through maturity, we end up doing.
Correct.
The older we get, right? Your
Correct.
circle gets smaller and smaller. People fall off, whatever you want to call it. But the ones who are truly your friends, they stick around. So
The good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you become the director for Black Menswear?
Yes. So interestingly enough, I just kept showing up.
Mm-hmm.
Honest to God. So the first flash mob I attended was in 2020.
Okay.
It was in Charlotte, which is where I live, and I heard about it online, and I showed up and met some really cool brothers there, and didn't intend to get to where I currently am. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, all right, cool. I'm going to attend this and meet some cool brothers and have a good time, and cool. When I attended that one, I found out, oh, they do this in other cities. It's like a tour, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
They do this in other cities. I said, okay, cool. Well, when's the next one? Oh, they're gonna do one in Houston. Okay, cool. I've never been to Houston. This is an excuse to visit a city I've never been to and hang out with like-minded brothers who, come from different walks of life, but are all striving for the same thing, right? They're striving for community. They're striving to be better fathers, better men, better husbands, etc. Right? That's somewhere I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I showed up in Houston, and then they did one in DC, and I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna pop out in DC. I got family that lives in Baltimore. I can go up and visit the family, make a quick hop down to DC and do this, that, and the third. I think the big thing that made me that brought me to, I guess, some sort of, I don't want to say prominence, but at least to recognition by the leadership team of Black Menswear was when they did the international tours and I came. Right. So, and again, for me, it was another opportunity to be like, oh, I've never been to this city. I could go. There'll be people that I already know there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just going to be out there, wandering around, not knowing anything. So I showed up when they did the Paris mob and had a great time in Paris.
Man, I would love to visit Paris.
Yeah. Oh, man, it was amazing. Yeah, the Paris mob was fantastic. And then they did Ghana. I think this is like, they kind of started recognizing me in Paris. And then for the Ghana mob, I reached out to Neandre and was like, hey, I see the dates, do y'all already have a hotel where y'all staying? And he hit me back and was like, hey, he was like, a group of us are doing a big Airbnb. If you want to get on the Airbnb, there's like 11 rooms. If you want to get on the Airbnb, you can stay with us and just, put in this much. Cool.
Yeah.
So I kept showing up. I wasn't asking for anything. I wasn't like, hey, bro, can we get in? Can I get a discount? I wasn't asking for nothing. I showed up, participated, helped out where I could, tried to be a resource. And eventually it was like, well, it came about basically, it was like, hey, you've put in the work, right? You've shown that you're not here for what you can gain from it. Like you actually believe in what we're doing. And I do. I very much believe in what Black Menswear is trying to do, right? From the original mission statement, right? Around helping to build community and change the narrative to some of the other things that we've done along the way, kind of fighting for equitable pay for creators of color.
That's a big thing.
Absolutely, right? Trying to shine a light and bring some prominence and recognition to HBCUs, right? We visit HBCUs over the time, and also trying to make sure that we do the work, right? Like we're a benefit in some way, shape, or form to every community that we visit, right? All the community service work that we've done, whether it's helping out at a food bank out in Oakland, or doing a suit or clothing drive in Dallas, or going to Florida Memorial University, HBCU out there, and kind of speaking to the young men there about the importance of personal presentation and how you show up. We partnered with KIPP charter schools up in New York City to do a symposium with them around, kind of leadership and entrepreneurship. We try to make sure that, like, hey, brothers, it's cool to show up and take these pictures and get your flicks off for Instagram or whatever, right? Yeah. I always joke when we do the flash mobs, I'm always messing with cats, trying to get them to get good shots. I'm like, hey, look, this ain't your LinkedIn picture, right? I need you to look in this camera like you trying to impress Bay. Like, what I'm saying? Do this up, right? We always try to do that. We make it fun, right?
Yeah.
But that's not why we get together.
It's a purpose.
Right? There's absolutely a purpose. It's, hey, brother, like, Dre says this at every single mob. It's like, hey, if you leave out of here and nobody here knows, what you do or where you're from or what you do in your community or whatever, you've wasted your time.
Yes.
Right? You need to be making sure that somebody here knows what you do, and because that's how we build community. I find out, hey, how what do you do? Okay, maybe we can get together and we can figure out how we can do something. We had brothers put together nonprofit organizations, start businesses together off of meeting each other at these mobs, right? It's brothers from all walks of life, man. We've got doctors showing up. We got lawyers. We got brothers. We got brothers who drive trucks. We got brothers who are engineers. We got brothers who are in IT. Brothers who teach, right? Brothers who are full-time content creators. All of us from all these various walks of life share similar experiences, right?
And I can relate to that because my first flash mob was here in Vegas, and I met a lot of great people. Still to this day, we communicate through social media.
Absolutely.
And it's wonderful. Like anything I post from the pod, they're sharing it. They're commenting. And that's crazy because I don't know them from a bucket of pain.
But we're supporting each other.
And supporting each other.
Right? Because the support has to come from within your community first.
Yes.
Right. It has to come from within your community first, man. Like every time that a Black-owned brand gets large enough that a non-Black-owned brand wants to buy them, it's because that Black-owned brand had huge amounts of support from within its own community first, right? That's when other brands are like, no, let's go ahead and buy them because it's almost like the music business nowadays, right? With the music business, they're looking for artists, but they're looking for artists who already have a large number of followers and listeners. It's easy bake oven, right? Like it's okay. All we have to do is distribute. You've already got a fan base. It's the same thing. It's like, okay, your Black-owned brand already has a client base. Only thing we're going to do is help expand that client base. Now we can, get into the semantics of whether it's a good idea for the Black-owned brand to sell to that larger brand. That again.
I was just about to say.
Yeah, I'm not advocating that. I'm not talking against it. What you do with your business is entirely your decision, right? But I'm always 100% a supporter of us having our own brands and our own businesses and our own real estate, our own everything within our own community, and circulating and recirculating the Black dollar as many times as possible before it ends up somewhere else.
Which main event meant the most to you? Because you guys, like you said, you traveled across the world with the flash mob. So what main event meant the most to you and why?
Oh man, let's see. Out of all the mobs that I've attended, I think the trip to Ghana was the most impactful for me.
Why is that?
So several things that I can think of about that trip. It was more than just the mob itself, right? So while we were there, we were there for about a little over a week, somewhere around there. While we were there, we did a lot while we were in Ghana. We touched down in Accra. One of our main photographers, Jermaine Gibbs, he works with a nonprofit organization called Hope Missions, and with them we traveled to further inland in Ghana to Kumasi, Ghana, where Jermaine and his nonprofit, they were actually helping to pay to drop wells for water in some of these villages, and actually helping to actually build a school. Like we actually went to the site for the school and helped put cinder blocks down and help build this school.
That's big.
Right? And that was amazing. It was amazing to see. We visited, I think it's called the Gold Coast. I think it was called the Gold Coast in Ghana. That's, kind of had some of the piers there, the old, I think it was like Portuguese forts where some of the Africans were actually enslaved. This is kind of the last where they were put on the boats sent over the Atlantic. And there's this big wooden door there. They call the door of no return. It's like, okay, when you pass through this door, like you're not coming home. And it was a really intense experience, right? Like several of us were there, and some of us had our wives there, and several people were just really, it was really emotional. I 100% advocate for anyone to go to Ghana and have that experience, to see these things for yourselves. Like, some of these things, read about them in books and you see them in movies, et cetera, and you feel how you feel about them. When you're standing there on the cobblestone and that like ancestors were showed, like they showed us the slave dungeons where like they separated the men from the women and they were kept down underneath like a castle almost. Actually, I say a castle, but it looked like a castle. It's actually a church. And they kept them underneath there with no light, right? And they didn't see light of day again until it was time to walk them along this path, out this door, and onto the boat, right? It's an emotional experience. It's a very spiritual experience as well. And you learn a lot. You learn a lot about your history and thereby about yourself. The mob itself was incredible, right? There's a large group of brothers in Africa. I want to say I cannot think of which country off the top of my head, and I'm really upset with myself about it. But the Sapeurs, these brothers over in Africa, they're a French-speaking nation that dress in suits, and they go really, really wild with, like, really, really flamboyant with color and everything. It's super, super dope. Seeing how the style and the fashion is interpreted in African nations, right? Because you see that on some level here in the U.S., right? We take style, fashionable trends or whatever, and then within our community, we take it and we put our own little spin on it. We put our own flavor, our own little spices in it to make it our own. And that's a universal thing, even for people like us who were not born in Africa and some who have never set foot there. That's still in us, right? And so it's like a tie that still binds even across the ocean. The last thing I will say about that trip, it's kind of somber. I have a couple of friends that live in South Africa.
Okay.
And they saw, because I was posting on social media about it, and they saw that I was, in Africa, in Ghana. And one of them messaged me and she said, "Hey, I see you're in Ghana. I hope you're having a wonderful time. I want to talk to you when you get home because I'd like to get your perspective on what it feels like for you to not be in the minority for the first time." And I saw this message while I was there. And, I hadn't thought about it, but I had scarcely seen a non-black face in like 5 days. There were like 2 that were at a hotel somewhere that we saw that were visiting. But everybody else that I saw was black. And it was, I felt so at ease, right? And then when we were flying back, my flight stopped in Dulles, in D.C. And I got off the plane in Dulles and stepped into the airport and looked around, and there were white people everywhere. And I literally just went, you don't realize how much of a weight that you're carrying walking around in this country every day because you're being supplanted by certain factions of white society. It's not universal, of course, right? But there's kind of an unspoken or unwritten burden that you're walking around with, right? Like if you've ever been in a room and you're the only black person there, like that feeling of like that subtle, I don't want to say dread, but apprehension
Mm-hmm.
that sits on you the entire time because you're the only one there.
Mm-hmm.
It brings to mind, current events like, kind of the recent, death of Nolan Wells out in Mississippi. It just, it makes you really think about it. Like I thought back on it, I was like, man, like for 5 to 7 days, I didn't feel that. I didn't feel at any point like I'm the only one here. And I'm in another country amongst a large group of people, many of whom do not speak English. But I don't feel endangered.
Mm-mm.
I don't
Because
feel
we was around our culture, right?
right. I don't feel any of that. I just feel
Yes, you fit in.
I fit in there. These people who don't speak the same language as me know a couple of English words. They know enough to tell me that I'm home.
Mm-hmm.
They can tell me that. They know enough to call me brother. Right? It's hard to explain, but it's something that like I said, I wholeheartedly recommend for any Black person in this country. Like at some point, make a trip. It doesn't have to be Ghana. It could be elsewhere within Africa. Ghana was wonderful to us, and I'd love to go to other places in Africa as well. But make a trip back to Africa and experience being around your people, being a non-minority for a while, and see what that feels like to you. It's eye-opening. It really is.
See, where I'm from, I grew up in a predominantly Black area.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't see whites unless they were police, unless they were junkies.
Mm-hmm.
But I grew up in predominantly Black. Like literally, the school I went to was predominantly Black.
Mm-hmm.
My teacher were, they were not.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the only time I would see. And then if I would go to the suburbs, and that's when I would see non-Blacks. But where I grew up in Kansas City, in the city, it was predominantly Black.
It's interesting that you one of the things that you just said, you mentioned that it's a predominantly Black school, but most of the teachers were not.
Mm-hmm.
I saw something online the other day. It was asking like, hey, when did you have your first Black teacher? I think I had my first Black teacher when I was in like 8th grade, something like that. But I just mentioned, I mentioned my son earlier. My son has I'll say the late birthday, right? So his birthday falls after the deadline for most schools, right? He's early September.
That's how it was. My birthday, because my birthday's in October, and the school starts August or September.
Late August. Yeah. So same thing. Like North Carolina, the cutoff date to start kindergarten, he had to be 5 by August 30th. His birthday's September 5th. It's 5 days, right? For public school, but the private schools, the deadline was October 16th. And so I was able to find a predominantly Black private school that was affordable. And I sent him there. Again, very, very small class size. I think the largest size class he had in elementary school was like 13 kids, right? That was the largest. Most of the time it was like 9. Most of the students are Black. The vast majority of the staff was Black and faculty. And one of the, again, I wasn't happy about having to pay for school, but also the benefits outweighed it for me. It was okay. Not only is he getting a private school education and the small class sizes, he'll get a lot more focus from the faculty, et cetera, but also he gets to experience in his very, very young formative years being instructed by faculty who can identify more closely with him.
Yes.
And after elementary school, we moved him to public school for middle school, and he's starting high school this year. It'll be at a public high school. Little culture shock there, of course. But again, in the very young formative years, I didn't have to worry about any of his teachers being, like targeting him.
Correct.
Because he's one of only 3 little Black boys in the class, or, we've seen the statistics, right? Black students are referred for discipline at much, much higher rates than students of other races. all these things that I just no longer had to worry about. And I feel like that was very, very beneficial for him. And I think it's had a very, very positive impression upon him.
So mental health, as a father,
Mm-hmm.
a leader, and a content creator, how do you prioritize your mental health and your relationship as far as your business, your family? How do you prioritize your health?
So I am in therapy.
Okay.
I am in therapy even though I felt like I didn't need it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that far too many, so many things that have to do with mental health are stigmatized within our community. I didn't feel like I had any major issues,
Mm-hmm.
right? I did not come from a two-parent household per se, but I have good relationships with both my parents. There aren't major problems in my marriage. I mean, we tit for tat just like every other married couple.
No
But
one's perfect, bro.
yeah. But no major problems to speak of. I felt like my relationship with my son was very good. Even my co-parenting relationship between myself and my son's mother
Mm-hmm.
is very good. The thing with mental health is much of the work that we often need to do is work that we can't see.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very much worth it to have a professional listen to things with an objective ear and help you see your blind spots,
Mm-hmm.
right? One of the things that I was concerned about, even though I didn't think it was happening, I wanted to make sure that I was fathering well, right? I wanted to make sure that because my father wasn't able to be as present, that I wasn't being hampered by that and then thereby passing any of those issues along inadvertently.
Mm-hmm.
Again, wanting my son to be better than me, right? I don't want to pass on any of my weaknesses to
Mm-hmm.
him. So I talk a lot with my therapist about parenting, about the way that I address things with him, about the things that he's going through and how I can help.
Mm-hmm.
But interestingly enough, therapy can also be preventative. I started therapy, probably I don't know, maybe two and a half years ago.
Okay.
Within, I'll say 6 to 9 months of me starting therapy, my grandmother passed.
Sorry to hear that.
I appreciate that, brother. My grandmother and I were very, very close. My mother had me very young, so my grandmother raised me very much when I was really, really small. It's probably the person that I was closest to. And I hadn't had to deal with grief in a very long time,
Mm-hmm.
much less grieving the person that I was closest to. And I'm very, very thankful that I was actively in therapy as that happened.
Mm-hmm.
If I hadn't been, I probably would have sought it. I would have sought therapy as that took place. But again, thankful that I was actively in it because my therapist helped me to navigate how I was feeling and helped me to not let that grief have an adverse effect on my ongoing relationships, my relationship with my son, with my wife, with my mother.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's very easy, to find yourself in a somewhat depressed state
Yes.
while grieving, and that bleed over into other areas of your life, and you inadvertently harm people who are trying their best to support you.
Yes.
And may not know the best way to. So that was advantageous for me to have. We had, again, other things, life just, life be lifing.
Life be lifing, brother.
Life be lifing, brother.
So
life be lifing.
Our story is similar because my grandmother was my world. My grandmother raised me.
Absolutely.
My grandma was everything. I can get in trouble with my mom or school,
Mm-hmm.
and she's first up the bat to defend for me.
Yeah.
And so she was my world. She passed in 2021 as I was here.
Mm-hmm.
That hole's never been filled.
Yeah.
Still to this day, I mourn her. There's times I call my mother crying to her because, when things are good or bad or happen in my life, I can always call my grandmother.
Yeah.
Truth told, I'm gonna tell a quick little story. So when I moved to Vegas, I thought I had everything figured out.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I had a job, and things quickly turned to worse.
Mm-hmm.
I started living in my truck.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in my truck for like 4 to 5 months. My grandmother, at the time, she was receiving her Social Security and benefits, right? She was giving me her Social Security money to help me survive out here in Vegas until I got up on my feet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she was on everything.
Yeah.
So when she passed, my world came down.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly understand, brother. Like, it's the way I kind of explained it to you, and I wrote, kind of something out to go and, kind of the obituary and everything. And I said, it's you're of course never prepared for somebody to, leave this earth, right? It's, we never know the time or the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing when the person that you love the most is gone, but it's almost a whole nother level of hurt when the person that loves you the most leaves,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that there's a whole lot of people that I can think of that love me unconditionally.
Yes.
And that woman loved me unconditionally, even undeservedly.
Oh.
There were times I did stuff where I was like, I don't know why she even continued putting up with me.
Yep.
So to lose something like that, someone like that, in your life, it's a heavy thing to sit on your shoulders all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
And again, my wife was very supportive.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to the wife.
Yeah, 100%.
Shout out to the wife.
Man, I would not have made it through it without her. You hear me?
Mm-hmm.
My son as well, very much was in my corner. Friends and family who knew how much she meant to me. So, but again, even still, even with all of that support, having a therapist that I could talk to and who could explain to me in some ways how I was feeling, right? Because sometimes we feel things and we don't really understand how we feel. We're just feeling them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The therapist can help you understand those things and help keep you, cognizant of, hey, don't take this out on other people.
Yes.
Who are trying to be there for you. So I say that to say, long story short, like I very much advocate, especially for Black men, to look into therapy. Again, even if you don't think you need it. I didn't think I needed it.
Yeah.
Right? Until I needed it. You know what I mean? I'm fortunate that, my health insurance covered the vast majority. I really don't have to pay much nothing for it. But but even if you don't have that, there are programs out there. There are all kinds of options for you to sit down and talk to somebody. Look for somebody. I don't want to talk to somebody. You pick your therapist first and foremost. When I said, okay, cool, I want a therapist. I want a Black man.
Mm-hmm.
I want to sit down with somebody who can identify with what my life is like,
and not feeling pity,
right?
Because
right,
like you said, he's
exactly. I don't need somebody to be like, hey man, I'm sorry that I don't need that.
Yeah,
I need somebody to be like, look, brother, I understand.
Yeah,
I understand. I've dealt with grief. I've dealt with this. I've done, whatever the case may be. Like, hey, here's another perspective. Here's something that you may not have thought of. Here's something like that to help you navigate all of these emotions and pitfalls and trials and tribulations that you're going to experience along the way.
So you touched back on faith. How does it play a part in your personal life, your career, and your purpose?
Yeah. So I'm an odd case. I'm an odd case with that. I'm still on a journey with my beliefs. I was raised very much. We just spoke about my grandma. My grandmother was an evangelist. I was raised very much in the church, in the deep South, right?
So brother, it's like the South and the Midwest, they can be related because
100%.
Because our culture, grandmothers, our great grandparents, they grew up in church.
Yes, absolutely.
They grew up in
listen,
church.
Brother, I was in that building 3-4 nights a week now. Listen, Bible study, Sunday school, right? You know what I'm saying? Like all that. Look, my grandmother, she was an evangelist. She was an usher. She was on the choir. Like I was there. I was in the building a lot.
So, but people don't understand. Back then, they had to. So my grandma and them, they record the service through the radio, cassette tape.
Yes,
cassette tape. So like I said, the South and the Midwest can be related, brother. Because we all
100%, brother.
Every time I come and get someone in our culture, their grandparents then went to church.
Yes,
they didn't grow up in the church.
Absolutely,
they got somewhat church background.
No, we raised very, very heavily, very, very devout in church. Now, as is the case with I think a lot of people, you get older and you question things and you study other things. And again, me, engineer's mindset, right? I like to understand how things work and where things came from. It's just how my mind works. I've studied with multiple faiths, with multiple denominations. I have settled on. If I had to label it, I would call myself an agnostic, which is to say that I don't have a degree of certainty about which one of these paths is right, and I'm not going to discount any of them.
But he did say study to learn your understanding.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. He said you have to study
I advocate for that. The people, like I speak to a lot of brothers. Matter of fact, there's a brother. Shout out to my man Christian Smith, based out of Atlanta. I've known Christian for years and years and years. And he's a faith leader out of Atlanta, and he does a lot of work and posts a lot of videos and does a lot of podcasts and whatnot. Has his own podcast actually talking about basically deconstructing harmful theology, and it's fantastic to listen to and hear from somebody who's not just like, I just decided to hop in the pulpit one day. Like he's like a studied, a well-educated theologian, right? Like he's got the degrees, he's done the necessary work, he understands it not just from a Christian perspective, but from multiple faiths, right? And speaking to and listening to somebody who has that depth of knowledge and understanding and speaks about it objectively, right? It's really eye-opening, and it helps to, I love when a faith leader doesn't tell you what to believe, right? They tell you, well, look, here's what this says, here's how I interpret it. Let's hear what you have to say about it. Let's figure out, and help you figure out what's the right direction for you. Because your direction may not be the same as mine.
Right, because you don't want no one who's going to force it upon you.
Right.
It's what
Absolutely.
What you're getting at.
Right.
It's what
you let people, if you're gonna if you're a Christian and you want to call people to God, then tying them up and dragging them to God is not the best way to do it, right?
No,
right. And again, a lot. One of the other things that I love that Christian does, and he talks about, is there's this thing that I've seen around on social media where I won't say a lot, with some pastors, have been, kind of demonizing, African spirituality and kind of faiths and spiritualities from other regions and other countries, which number one, I hate to see, but he does a fantastic job of explaining that, beliefs line up more than they deviate, right? For example, the the Quran, right? The Quran. I've read the Quran, and there's this false narrative. It was like, oh, well, Muslims, they don't worship God. They worship Allah. It's like Allah is literally just the word for God.
Correct.
Like there is more similarity between the Islamic faith and the Christian faith than there is differentiation. Instead of focusing on those differences,
Yep.
we could absolutely come together on those similarities and frankly worship side by side,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that, again, negative voices tend to be louder,
Yes.
right? There's a whole bunch of, transcripts and videos of Malcolm X talking about how black folks should separate themselves from white folks. But in the final years of his life, after he made his Hajj to Mecca, Malcolm X came back, right, preaching about how we need to come together because he saw people of all races
Yes.
worshiping in Mecca, right, together, side by side. I think that if anything, that's where my faith leads me,
Mm-hmm.
right? It leads me to trying to figure out how we can all get on the same page, or what is the one page that all of us have in each of our books,
Yes.
right? That is virtually the same. I think when we get to that point collectively in our community, without our community as well, outside of our community, I think the world will be in a much, much better place and a better state when we can learn to focus more on those similarities.
Looking back at your younger self, what lesson you had to learn the hard way and that changed your life?
Boy. I'll give you one of the biggest ones. I fresh out of high school, I joined the military as a reservist, as an Army reservist.
Okay. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Before I went through basic training, if I had been driving somewhere and I ran out of gas,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw a sign that said the next gas station was 10 miles away,
Mm-hmm.
I would have gotten out of my car and stood on the side of the road with my thumb out, right? After basic training, if that same thing happened and I saw a sign that said next gas station 10 miles, I'd be like, all right, and I'd start walking.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not necessarily saying I'm advocating for everybody to go to the military, right? But one thing the military taught me is that you don't really know what you're capable of until you don't have a choice, right? You don't know what you can do until there's no option but to do it, right? Walking 10 miles for the average person, is like, oh, I'm not walking 10 miles in the heat. What? Are you crazy? But at 18 years old, I had walked 15 miles carrying 70 pounds of equipment after going 24 hours with no sleep.
Yeah.
So walking 10 miles with nothing on my back after having slept a full night's sleep sounds like easy mode to me, right?
Light work.
Right. So it's like it put a lot of things in perspective. Now, granted, I learned that by going through basic training. There's many other ways I could have learned that, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So again, not necessarily advocating for everybody to go,
Yeah.
but if anyone out there listening can take that lesson, like, you really don't know what you can do until you're put in a position where you just have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you are capable of much more than you think you are, and that I think that belief or that understanding, that realization, maybe is maybe the secret to unlocking potential you don't know you have.
If this was your opportunity to leave one message with the world about faith, family, purpose, and becoming a better man, what would you tell the people?
Faith, family, purpose, and becoming a better man. Man, there's a lot in there, but if I had to leave one message, it would be save yourself first, right? There's multiple reasons for that. Number one, I think we as a community have to eventually come to the understanding and realization that we're not going to save everybody.
Yes.
Everybody don't want to be saved.
Nope.
Right. There's that. But there's also, you hear the age old adage about like, when something happens on the plane and the mask comes down, the thing says always, put your mask on first.
Yes.
And then, you can't help anybody if you can't help yourself. If you can't feed anybody if your pantry is empty.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So you can't, if you don't know how to swim, you can't save someone from drowning.
Absolutely not. Right? There's nobility in sacrificing yourself to save somebody else. Right? There's nobility in that. But if you can save somebody and still stay alive yourself, you can save somebody else, right? So make sure that you yourself are in the best possible state, right?
Mm.
Don't kill yourself trying to keep somebody else alive if you can help it, right? Your children are different. Like you die for your children in a heartbeat, right? But make sure that you are in the best state, because just like I just said, like, oh, I die for my son in a heartbeat, but my son will be better off if I could stay around to help him, right? Mm. So keep yourself healthy and able and so on and so forth, so that you can be a benefit to the people that you care about. You got to save yourself first.
Well, I want to say thank you for stopping by, had this conversation with me, brother.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you. And it was nice talking to you, brother.
You too, brother.